Good morning, listeners and viewers, and everyone everywhere. Apologies, we appear to be having some technical issues, but which I can't quite understand because looks like Spice FM has managed to connect, but my budding hosts and co-hosts and everyone else is struggling. Um, Interesting. Let's see. I don't think we can change anything on Zoom whilst I am in it, but we'll certainly give it a go. You're listening to Ammar live on our weekly radio show right here on Spice FM. For those of you who are regular listeners, thank you very much for your patronage and your listening ship. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, welcome. It's certainly usually a very lively and entertaining show where I'm not talking purely to myself, and I normally have a wonderful co-host called Jalf. Oh, Allan Curry's here. He's managed to get through and he's here. I don't know why he calls himself Allan Curry. And here's Jalf. Wonderful. Yeah. Let me rename Mr.
Not quite, Jalf.
Let me rename Mr. Curry. That's what we'll do. Hey, Jalf.
Hey, good morning, Ammar.
Oh, morning, Jalf.
Morning.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm fine. What a job I had getting logged in.
Yeah, well, Ammar's for security purposes, probably changed all the codes and stuff, so no one gets access to his money and everything else.
Yeah, that's fair comment. I haven't heard what he said, obviously. I haven't heard what he said. But so, Jalf, let's start with a very serious note, right? The world's collapsing around us.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going to hell in a handcart for, I'm sure that word's not too bad for radio, but the issue that affects you, I, and a lot of people in the region, how are we going to cope with the injuries in Newcastle United?
I think it's
anyway, thanks for jumping straight in. We didn't even shake hands. We haven't give each other a kiss or a hug or nothing.
We don't need to.
Straight in. Oh
We've
my
had
gosh!
plenty of kisses in the past.
If this was a date and that was your tongue, I think I'd be saying, "No, I'm not meeting you again. I've only said hello. I haven't even said hello." Anyway, good morning.
If you just bear with me, the question still poses, Jalf, how are we going to cope?
Yeah, I think it's good.
Anyway, if you just bear with me, I have to bring some order into this radio show. It is called Show Business. We do have very professional listeners, and some of them don't know anything about anything. So let's share something about something. So good morning, listeners. You're listening to Ammar and
Jalf.
And
well, obviously Alan, but I've just been told off.
All right. What does that even mean? Anyway, and each week, only because Doc was going to gate crash the show as well. I don't know. It's a big party this morning, but each week we bring you news, views, and one or two clues from the business world.
We'll be talking shop quite literally and not just corner shops. Whether you look to start a business, have an existing business, or you just want to talk business, we can help.
Yeah, I just realised I said your words, Jeff.
Oh, good.
We're all going a bit like. Okay. Anyway, good morning.
At least everybody
Alan.
knows it's live.
Would you like to talk? Would you like to talk about football?
Well, no, it's just a concern, isn't it?
No, I think we have to have a look at things in the bigger context. I know that as fans, we get so into the football and our hearts and souls, and we think about it constantly. And I think the injuries are such a big worry, but we are still kind of up there in the mix with the other big teams. We're on 20 points. maybe, 7-8 points off Man City. Yes, the injuries, there's loads and loads of injuries. And I think we've got about 10 games in the next 5 weeks, which is going to really put us to the test. I don't think there's anything else that we can do about it, Alan. I think it's just a matter of looking at the games and looking at what we can do with the players that we have. I think Callum Wilson has just been announced yesterday that he's going to be probably missing for 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So that takes him out until the end of Jan. I think the only good things is that we're about 5 weeks. We start again on the 25th against Chelsea. That's about 5 weeks from the transfer window, and I think they have to make moves in the transfer window and then at least get 2 to 4 incomings to alleviate the issues. But it's a matter of getting through December. I think if we have a look at the big picture, the second half of the season, I think we'll get a lot of injuries back, and I think we'll be stronger. We just have to have a really strong finish. If we can somehow get through the 2 games in the Champions League and get through the next stage, it means that that's kind of locked down and we can forget about that until February. It's going to be challenging, but I think...
Anyway, good morning, everyone. You've tuned in.
No, but Ammar.
Listen, Alan, right?
No. Listen,
I'm very, very
There's a
grateful for this like sort of, but actually on a Friday morning, people really want to hear what's going on in the world.
No, but there's a link here, because when you're talking about business and show business, how much more in the last 2 years has the ability for people to feel good about their football team reflected in output and enthusiasm and business? Well, I use the word behind the excellence.
Wonderful. Thank you. So thanks for that wonderful insight. Good morning, Dr. G.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Alan.
Morning, Doc.
Good morning. Nice to see you, nice and slim. Everyone is horizontal. Alan is vertical. Hi.
Well, as is Jalf.
Oh,
I don't think they
hi, Jalf. Oh, Jalf didn't move. I didn't realize he was live on the show, honestly.
It's a photograph.
It's
artificial
AI.
intelligence.
Yeah, is what it is. Anyway, good morning and welcome. Thank you to our dearest friends. Delighted that we have. Who are those 2 old guys from the Muppets?
I can't remember.
Waldorf and Statler.
You wouldn't.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I've been insulted. Doc, have you been insulted?
No.
I don't think.
Listen, if you want to feel abused, you're welcome to it. I don't.
Yeah. Living it. Anyway, so it is Friday morning. Thank you ever so much for gate crashing the show. And you're very, very welcome. Probably not quite gate crashing, given the fact that you'd all had a special invitation. Security has changed, obviously, because of how many people are trying to get in on this show.
Really?
It's crazy. Everybody wanted to join the show. People lining up outside and inside, digitally, virtually, physically.
Personally, virtually.
Absolutely, in every sense. So let's do a quick round the room. I think other than football, which obviously is an incredibly important topic, and actually talking about football, I might as well get on this bandwagon. I'm off to see England versus Malta tonight.
Are you?
Very good.
Yeah.
Where's it been played? Wembley.
Wembley.
Wow.
Yeah. So I could even break into the song "Tell Me Ma, Me Ma."
Yeah, I'm going to Germany.
Are you? Are you?
No, because that's where the Euros are next year.
All right. Well,
and England's already qualified, so you'll probably see at least 5 goals tonight.
Back to football.
I know, Doc.
Anyway,
Sorry, it's
other than
exclusionary
football,
language.
it is, but this is a very inclusive show. So let's get back to business. I'm sure that's a song somewhere. Jaff, talking about business, what's going on in the business world in the city centre? Please give us an update. Talk about traffic, how bad it is, how horrible it is getting in and out.
In hospitality, obviously, it's the harvest is coming up in December. Well, it used to be a harvest where the whole restaurant calendar used to be geared towards December and the Christmas parties and A, B, C, and D. Having a walking around in the city, Ammar, I just feel that the city centre is a lot quieter than what it has been over the years. It just feels very dull to me. Walking around Grey Street, it's been a mess for 2 years, two years now. As you said, the traffic is causing chaos. Nobody knows how to get into the city centre, the routes they should take, so they probably just give it a miss. So all of those things are a big concern, and the quicker they resolve and get these buildings up and get the traffic flow back to where it used to be, I think the better it's going to be for the city.
It's a good point there, Jeff, because the last time I was down at your restaurant, parking the car was incredibly difficult. And bear in mind your situation, I once had to park up down on the quayside, and even once had to park in Market Street. Yeah,
it's terrible, Alan. I think sometimes you feel that the city council or the decision. I'm wondering. Sometimes I wonder what they're on when they're making these.
Go on, sorry.
Wonder what?
I just wonder what they're on. Are they on something?
Well, Doc's a good example here in relation to High Street.
Yeah.
Well, I think the High Street is better than before. I mean, it's the best they can do, unless you move the county hotel a bit eastwards. They've taken those horrible orange bollards out. The black bollards are painted. And you know, if a bus comes, I know it's very difficult because my wing mirror and the bus are kind of inches apart, you know. But accidents are not happening, you know. And the other thing, you know, where Jaff is talking about at the roundabout, they're doing a good job, you know. Mind, they're doing it so slowly. They're really expanding that roundabout, you know, the city center roundabout off the Tyne Bridge.
Why does it need expanding? Why do you need to do anything?
Because there'll be so much traffic, I guess, because of that new building.
It's perfectly fine. I think it's a matter of them getting funding from somewhere else and doing work for the sake.
They're trying to spend money. Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, they're doing work for the sake of doing the work. It's not essential work that's necessary. It's down to used to be, oh yeah, European funding. We've got European funding to put some bike lanes in, and let's use that money to get the money off and put the bike lanes in, cause more disruption to the city centre. And there's not one bike on the bike lanes. And as we've said in the past, this is not Amsterdam. We're not Amsterdam. We're in Newcastle upon Tyne. Our city has its own culture, its own history, its own framework. And we, as Geordies, we live in a particular way. So can you not take our values into consideration, Newcastle City Council? You know,
have you been to Jesmond lately in Heaton? I picked my granddaughter up the other day, and I tried to go a normal route. I went to Jesmond, and all the roads are blocked off with bollards.
Well, I think, Alan, I mean, look, I think this is a sinister campaign that's going up and down the country. And who is there to stop the councils from doing the most stupidest things and making our daily lives more difficult? And if there isn't a group of people like yourselves who are in the know, who can actually speak some sensibility, if that's a word, to the people in power, then our lives are gonna be so much more difficult tomorrow. And if we don't do something now, and they should make sensible decisions to the benefit of the public. I think that's why the people are in power for, I'm assuming, Doc, people like yourself.
I'm not yet in power. I try to do my best. You know, we went to a meeting. We went to a meeting with the officers. Sorry, go on.
Isn't it, let's say that you get yourself into the position that you're looking to get yourself into. Are you not there to serve the public?
What else would I be there for?
Right. So then when the public is not being served, who is holding these people accountable? When they're making their lives difficult.
100% agree with your anger and wrath. I think, you know, I was telling you that we had
Just a logical, like a honest answer to.
Okay. So we had a meeting of the city council in 1901 on the House Street. And we got informed at the last minute. It's a small room. Gosforth has 10,000 voters. And it's a tiny room, obviously, not expecting anyone. So Scott and I went in and I said, how many of you officers actually drive? None of them do. So they are pushing their personal agenda onto us, really. That is what they're doing, you know. I like a bike because when I'm on my bike, I'm still in office time. I can have a backpack, look sexy, go down slowly, Gosforth High Street, look very green. Yeah, but the work doesn't get done like. In business, you need your own personal transport. Buses are fine, but first of all, we don't have a first-class bus service or a metro service or anything like that. It's there, but it's not good enough for someone like yourselves to do business with. Like you said, this is not Amsterdam. It's not even Oxford, you know.
Wonderful. Thanks for this. I'm so glad I invited everyone this morning to rant and rave about, anyway, some headlines. Let's just start with some headlines. We'll come back to traffic. David Cameron returns to cabinet table after 7 years. Doc, any views on that?
I have no issue with that because they're there to serve. So whether he went for Brexit or didn't, I believe he's a different guy. And someone like him, to be humble enough to work under so much younger and inexperienced, I take my hats off to him.
He's not going to work under him, though, is he?
Well, that's your point of view, but I think the humility is good. And it used to happen earlier, you know, when politicians were less politicians, when they were serving people. I like the guy.
He's just going to be a backseat driver.
Whatever he is, hopefully he can come and drive some traffic in Newcastle then, can't he, if we're talking about backseat drivers. Anyway, so other things in the news, clearly, because we need to temper this, right? So Doc, if there are people in the council who are riding cycles, then at least there's some people, Jalf, riding cycles who are benefiting from these decisions. Well, it's remiss to say nobody is benefiting. Somebody is.
Well, at the cost of a majority.
I would like to see.
Okay. Well, life's. I mean, we've already just talked about life is such a pain. You know, it's such a challenge. Life is such a big. So sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose. Get a bike. Get on your bike.
Get on your bike.
Get on your bike. Yeah. I mean, what annoys me about cyclists is they don't seem to think the highway code applies.
Well, I think that's just you're just fobbing us off, really. If you were in a position of power, I would say you're fobbing us off, sir, because that's not really it's not a good enough answer. Because
okay, I'll give you an answer. Let me give you an answer.
Spot the cycle.
Let me try and justify this conspiracy that the so-called conspiracy that let's do this. No, this is really interesting because I'll tell you what, right, Mr. Jalf, right? Are you having a laugh? Right? If you look at all of the world, right, currently, we for centuries now have polluted our environment to such a degree that all we experience now is the extremities of weather. The environment, our Mother Earth is now complaining and saying enough is enough. So what's happening? The fires that are burning out communities all over the world, the floods that are drowning out communities all over the world, and the torrential, incredible extremities of earthquakes killing hundreds of thousands of people. So if it starts with in Newcastle, people have to get on their bike and stop polluting this community and this country. Do you know how many cancers have come about because of pollution? Do you know that one of the most horriblest, most polluted places in the UK at one given time was the West Road in Newcastle, right? People living there were 10 times more likely to suffer from pollution than other places in the country. So anyway, if someone somewhere is forcing people to get on a bike, then I don't agree with it. I was just justifying.
Isn't it too much and too quickly?
Everything
And Britain, that produces only 1% of pollution, is trying too hard to virtue signal. I don't agree with anything you've said.
Everything that Ammar said is a conspiracy. Nothing is correct. That's that's the line that the powers that be are using to
Frighten us.
fill a agenda that they have, which is not the reality. The reality is that on the Westgate Road, I mean, if you have a look at catalytic converters, why were they brought in? Did they not tell us then that, oh yeah, you need to get one of these and then that's gonna, you remember the fumes that used to come out of exhausts?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen any exhaust with any fumes coming out of it?
No.
Never. So, and as you said, Doc, Britain is such a small country in the context of everything.
Yes.
What are we going to do to try to change the CEO emissions around the world? Absolutely nothing. And I would much rather, and it's not, you say that cancer, when you have a look at it, that's not coming out of the fumes on the Westgate Road. Maybe it's going to have a look at all the manufactured food that we consume every single day.
Exactly.
And how sugars are in sugar puffs that we consume every single day.
Absolutely.
No, we're there, Jack. Actually, there is no sugar in sugar puffs. I'm so glad you brought sugar puffs up, right? Because the taste of sugar puffs is outrageous. Where's all the sugar gone? In fact, they don't even call them sugar puffs anymore. You know, it is ridiculous. And
Well,
I
I
used
think
to
it's
love
all
sugar
virtue
puffs.
signaling. It's all looking good, isn't it? And as Jaff is saying, cancer is not a one-way process. If your health is good, you fight cancer. So just like COVID times, get an injection, get more injection, get more injection. How about improving your health?
Well,
It's
exactly.
a process, you know. It's not just outsider.
Tell him.
Excuse me. I love the fact that Mars swallowed the green pill, because for every report talks about climate disaster, and sadly, Doc and I can go back to years ago with snow, rain, and even fire. The fact there's reports out there that contradict the green pill and argument, but as soon as you read them, you're called a climate denier. It's a bit like when you say certain things against certain areas and you're called a racist. There's two arguments, isn't it? As soon you don't have a debate. As soon as you contradict the common attitude, you're either a racist or a climate denier.
So you were there. So just for the purposes of clarity, someone was asking explicitly for an explanation, right? I offered an explanation. Just because you didn't like my explanation or agree with my explanation doesn't mean to say that there isn't an explanation. I don't necessarily agree with the explanation offer. I was simply trying to counter, because it's important, right? You do need to look through other people's eyes and lenses and whatever it is. Whether people, and all of you are absolutely right in regards to the real statistics around the temperature of the Earth. It has incrementally increased over the decades, for centuries, forever. It is incrementally, and it is no further increased in the last 2,000 years than it had 20,000 years ago. Right? So these are matters of fact. Having said all of that, there is in fact pollution. That is a matter of fact. There is, and whether that's the UK, it's dead easy for us to sit in our rosy condition, right? And so to go, oh, well, we don't do anything. What about India? What about China? What about Russia? What about South America? And what about them? They are years behind where we were. They're catching up.
Apart from that, Ammar, if you're buying an iPhone, even today, most of it is made in China. Most of the lithium is extracted from abusing the Tibetans. So, it's nice to look nice here, but you're funding bad behavior in China. So I don't like the Chinese system.
No question.
You're buying from them.
Yeah, listen, you're talking to the converted, and you're absolutely right, because all of you are going to get cancelled out of the next show. There's no question about that.
Rather be cancelled than talk lies.
Yeah.
Well, it's not about lies. So
And I
about
have
lies,
and I
right?
have been cancelled several times, even from Spice.
I'm had
This
too many of these
cancel
people,
culture.
and it's
This cancel culture.
yeah.
So it looks like
Anyway.
next week's Spice FM show business, it's only going to be you because the rest of us are getting cancelled.
We have got a special guest coming on the show now. We're delighted to have Professor Robert Macintosh, who's from Northumbria University, one of our key supporters from the ABC Awards. So let's, with your permission, Doc Allan, you're welcome to stay. We're going to get Professor Robert Macintosh on. Is that all right?
Okay.
The doc, as I always do.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, Robert.
Morning, Ammar. How are you?
Good morning.
Wonderful.
Morning.
And thank you ever so much for joining us. Apologies if you would, well, I'm not going to apologize, but we were having a very lively debate, which is, I wouldn't say unusual, but we had a couple of extra colleagues from Team ABC with us this morning, Robert. So with your permission, what we'll do is we'll quickly do a bit of a round of introductions, and then we'll ask you to do the same, including what you do, why you do it, how you do it. And then we'll have a bit of an interaction around inclusion, ABC, the Northeast, and more explicitly, education and what's going on in the educational side of things in our wonderful region. Is that okay?
Sounds perfect, Ammar.
Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Curry, let's start with you, if we may, please.
Hi, Robert. Allan Curry here. One of the, dare I say, more original founders of ABC with yourself and Jalf, still here. Obviously, I've gone a little bit grey since dealing with the 2 years, but on the same token, we promote ABC for what it's worth in relation to the region and how we look at inclusivity. And every now and then we get invited on to be told what to do by Ammar.
That's very kind of you. I don't think I ever told you what to do, or I may have, but that's never been executed in that way. So that's very kind. And Robert, Allan's career was a distinguished one within the public service, where he was eventually the chief superintendent, area commander at Northumbria Police. Where he was also involved in some significant community engagement and inclusion programs as well. So he's got an incredibly distinguished.
Just to see you brought that up, not least of which with the Jewish community.
Yeah. And the broader community as well, Allan.
Oh, absolutely. Just because where I finished was Gateshead with the Orthodox Jewish community that would live there and some of the big involvement we had.
So thank you for that. Doc, may I come to you?
Yes, well, I have been in the National Health Service for 37 years, 32 of them at the Elmfield Health Group as a doctor who promoted complementary therapies. And talking of inclusivity, through Ammar Mirza's organization, I got an award for that through one of the competitive mayor candidates. I am naturally inclusive. I've been to every single mosque. I've been to every single church, every single temple and Gurdwara through filming. That's my excuse. I became a Conservative candidate 4 years ago, and I wish to serve in that way now.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And Robert, my co-host, co-founder, and I was thinking of another but couldn't come up with it. My co-friend,
Coca-Cola.
Anyway, co-conspirator is what he is.
Yeah,
that would be a better word to describe him. Jalf.
Good morning, Robert. First and foremost, we're a kind of local family of restaurateurs. We have Dabawal and Kai Kai been involved in hospitality for over more or less 60 years in the city where my father started. Involved with Ammar on ABC when we looked and felt that there was an opportunity for a organization to kind of help support and promote kind of the Asians effectively to begin with within the city, and that's been a really important part of my development in terms of understanding of broader business. So most of my time is spent in restaurants, and I do as much as I can possibly can with ABC, which is not a great deal as I would like it to be because of other commitments. So in a nutshell, that's what I do.
Excellent.
And last but not least, Robert, if we may hear who you are, what you do, and why you do it, please.
I feel doing that in the company of Alan makes me feel like I'm under caution, so I'll be very careful what I say.
Well,
no.
you know what I mean, for the
Rob-
benefit of the tape, for the benefit of the tape, Robert,
Yeah, exactly.
we'll encourage you to speak up if we may.
No,
please.
it's fine. Robert will know when he's under caution. He's just speculating at the moment.
Yeah. So I'm Robert Macintosh. It's a delight to meet some of you. I met one or two of you at a previous awards dinner for the ABC. I'm based at Northumbria University, where my official job title is Pro Vice Chancellor for the Faculty of Business and Law. So I'm responsible for the business school and the law school, which do just amazing work to provide education to a whole range of people. But one of the things that's really distinctive about Northumbria University is the very high percentage of people who come to our university who tend not to be from postcodes in areas where lots of their friends, family, neighbours will have gone to university. So we have an awful lot of people who come to us who are first in family to go to university. I was the first in my family to go to university, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. So I work at the university. My subject area really is strategy and change related stuff. So I do research on how boards and senior leadership teams formulate strategy. And in relation to this morning's conversation, I am also leading a piece of work on behalf of UK Research and Innovation, UKRI as they're called, which is the national research body that oversees all of the research councils, looking at equality, diversity and inclusion in research and innovation careers. And there's a specific challenge there, which is there are just not enough people from underrepresented communities, whether one regards that as around gender or disability or ethnicity. There just aren't enough diverse voices in our research careers. If you look at particularly senior research leaders, they tend to be mostly male and white and middle-aged, and we need to do more to try and encourage people to see research and innovation careers as an exciting thing to do and to make them come into those careers, and then to support people in a variety of ways to ensure that they do stay in those careers and that they thrive in, and I'm really enjoying that work that we're doing. Beyond the role at the university, I'm also very privileged to be the chair of an organisation called the Chartered Association of Business Schools, which represents 122 business schools from UK universities, including Northumbria's, but almost every university in the UK has a business school, and almost all of those business schools are members of the Chartered ABS. And we had our annual conference on Monday and Tuesday of this week down in London, and it was a really excellent gathering of about 400 senior colleagues from business and business schools and policy making. We had some really fabulous speakers. We had the Lord Mayor of London telling us about the importance of artificial intelligence in the innovation process. We had the Minister for Business and Enterprise telling us about the importance of a thing called the Help to Grow scheme, which we run through 66 business schools in the UK for leaders from SMEs to get a little bit of advice on how to develop their leadership skills. We had inputs from Sir Nigel Wilson, the Chief Executive of Legal & General, talking about their need to try and inculcate the innovation in regions, because they manage £1.6 trillion worth of resource, and they need to try and get a return on that investment in ways that they are excited about, and they're active in the Northeast too. So it was an excellent event, and I feel very lucky to do all of that work because I enjoy it a tremendous amount. And Ammar was very kind for a period of time and sat on the advisory board of the business school at Northumbria before the call of other things dragged them off to do the other amazing things that he does. So it's a delight to be with you this morning.
Just as a
Thanks, Robert. and I've stopped being kind as well. So obviously, I was very kind, but I've
Just
stopped.
marginally less kind. Be kind to other people, Ammar. You have to spread the love.
Thank you.
Ammar, just as a slight interruption for Robert, I did the Help to Grow scheme at the beginning of this year at Newcastle University.
Yep.
I
And
classed
did you enjoy
myself
it?
as I classed myself as a mature student, right? In the context, it was interesting because I ended up through a circuitous route, so we don't need to go into that. But I was watching younger people doing what I was doing 20, 30 years ago in the context of business, business planning, finance, all the rest of it. It was interesting in two ways. A, I don't think the world's changed that much, but I think the slides have and some of the references have, if that makes sense. And I tried very hard not to monopolize, but it was interesting in the sense that I'd done all the things learning, and this sounds a little bit self-opinionated, but I'd also done them practically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was very, I enjoyed it.
I think
Was it Peter
think
Fisher? Was it Peter who was in charge of it?
Say the surname again.
I think it was Peter Fisher. I might have got the surname wrong,
Okay.
but Peter was the lead.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a great programme, Alan. It's to your point about the slides having changed and the references having changed. People have been trying to organise things since we built pyramids and built empires. And, in some ways, the study of management is the study of human history and civilization and organisation.
Yes.
And of course, some of that is a little bit immutable. How do you motivate people? How do you get people to help you and to collaborate? That's the history of humankind, really. But other bits of it change dramatically. So what it means to, for example, identify your market and engage with that market in a world where digital is the platform that people use to find out about products and services, regardless of whether that's in the commercial sector or in policing where you started your career. The technology has changed, and the nature of expectations about what you do in exchange with a customer, for example. It's not just about, I wanted to buy this product and I bought it off of you. Today, customers are interested in where that product came from and how ethically it was sourced and what your values are like as an organization. And some of those things wouldn't have been present in a Help to Grow program that ran 20 or 30 years ago. But some of them definitely would have been,
And it's great to have mature students as well, Alan, because you then get that seasoned experience and expertise of someone
Exactly.
saying, I'm sure that circle looks like a circle that I went round or whatever it was, because there's an aspect of that. But
you have to regard maturity maturity in the same way that you regard cheese, that it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm sure Ammar giving me a backhanded compliment there. I'll rewind the tape
No,
after we finish.
I didn't at all. But, thank you for that. Robert, you didn't explain your why. Why have you got into the things that you do, and more explicitly, education?
So there's two whys in there for me, Ammar, or maybe three. That one of them is that I genuinely find the stuff around strategy and how we compete just fascinating. And I've had this very privileged life of being in and around leadership teams in big corporate settings and big public organizations and startups and SMEs and family businesses. And it's a real privilege to sit with a leadership team as they're trying to figure out how they're going to do what they do better, or how they're going to break into a market, or in a public organization like DOC, if it's in the NHS, it's how we're going to deliver a service in a more innovative way that delivers better outcomes for people. That's just a privilege, and I find that endlessly fascinating. Second why for me is, why do I do that inside a university rather than as a consultant or as a managing director or as a business owner? Or I fundamentally believe that universities change lives. And so for me, higher education is an incredibly privileged place to work. But, if you take somebody as I was, I didn't know anybody else who'd been to university, and, it undoubtedly has changed my economic and social prospects and broadened my outlook on life. And I'm very lucky to work in a university where that's a big part of our mission. And so that's really motivational for me. I've no doubt that if you go to a very, very elite university and meet other people from very privileged backgrounds, that it also changes lives. But I'm interested in the part of the sector that is accessible to those who are at scale, who tend to be under-resourced and under-represented. And then the third why for me, maybe in relation to this morning's conversation, the reason that I am involved in that UKRI project about diversity and research careers is because I think that it's tremendously important to actively do something about representation rather than not. And so I absolutely love the tagline of inclusive by default, Ammar. I think that's a fantastic tagline. And that really is a draw for me. There's something in my personal values about fairness and opportunity and equity and support. And in a previous life, before I joined Northumbria, I was chair for a couple of years of one of the largest social care charities in Scotland, an organisation called Turning Point Scotland. And it provides services to people right across Scotland. It employs about 1,200 people, but it provides services to people who are experiencing homelessness, who maybe are having addictions issues, who've been through the criminal justice system, who've experienced domestic abuse, who've got learning difficulties. And those kinds of people, as you will well know from your prior life, Alan, those people don't always choose to be in those circumstances, and they really need a little bit of structure and support in their life. And so from that perspective, I try to bring some of that outlook of mine to my academic work to make sure that we support students to do the best that they can, because I have a belief that once we've done that, they'll go off and give forward to somebody else at some other point.
Thank you for that.
Robert, can I just interrupt one more, because I find that interesting, because I was brought up with the word strategy, but before it went policy, strategy, and then became tactics. Yeah. And I also was brought up with economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. But I think we missed the fourth E, which I would say evaluation. And because we get caught up in the world and the business and, dare I say, the day-to-day work, I sometimes wonder whether we've learned how to evaluate the processes we've put in place.
Yeah, I would agree. And so I think that in my working lifetime, strategy's gone from being a word which was used relatively rarely to being a word which is probably overused. And I would sometimes say to my students, for example, if you want to up your earning potential and get a better job, take the word strategy and its many derivatives and sprinkle it like icing sugar over everything you say and write about yourself. So don't just say I reviewed something, say I undertook a strategic review. Don't just say you do marketing, say I do strategic marketing, because it's obviously more important. And yet it is absolutely the most fundamental thing. Our strategy for me is how we're going to achieve the thing that we think we need to achieve. And when you look retrospectively, whether it's at sports teams or political organizations or commercial firms or charities, when you see somebody achieving more than you could reasonably be expecting, almost inevitably there's some strategy that sits behind that. Sometimes it's just raw luck, but mostly, Alan, if, for example, you dramatically reduce reoffending or the incidence of a particular type of crime, it's usually because there's been a strategy in place where it's been thought about, and you have to think, what's the best way with the resources that we have of achieving more than we could reasonably expect? The same would be true in the health service for Doc or others, but the same would be true in commercial settings, whether it's in the restaurant space for Jalf or in the sort of training work that you're doing through the Centre of Excellence, Ammar. If you achieve more than reasonably expected, you're generally, I think, you find that people are being strategic. And what I find as an academic who spent his life studying that stuff is there are a handful of relatively simple things, Alan, that you would say maybe they were as true for a Roman emperor or an Egyptian pharaoh as they are for somebody running a restaurant chain in the northeast or running a social enterprise in the southwest. There are a handful of those things, but we don't tend to teach them very well. And we get slightly lost in 2x2 matrices and frameworks and jargon. And for me, there's some very simple things. Figure out what problem you are trying to solve and solve that problem, not others. And so for me, that's about what I would call problem framing rather than problem solving.
How do you work on the words? I think we went between best practice to good practice.
Yeah, and so best practice, well, this is in danger of turning into either a rant or a mini lecture, but for me...
No, that's fine. That's why we're here.
For me, best practice is an alluring thing. Nobody wants to do worst practice. That's true, But best practice, if all you're going to manage to do is to mimic best practice, all you're ever going to do is catch up to somebody who's already better than you. And so truly step change things come from not doing best practice, but doing new practice and doing it differently. And that's where advantage comes from. And advantage is always temporary because everybody else is going to say, wow, the way in which Ammar is doing that's currently best practice. So I'm going to start copying that. And in order to be really groundbreaking, you have to say, yeah, well, we used to sell books in high streets, in shops with staff and with resources, and then we discovered we could sell them online. And so suddenly best practice becomes a digital retail experience, and something else will replace that. I can guarantee you that Apple and Google and these enormous tech giants will go bust at some point. I can't tell you quite when, but in every empire, religious belief system, military power, country, nation state, product category, there's been a seemingly insurmountable set of advantages which somehow get overturned when someone is strategic.
Yeah. So I'm loving this because we're learning as well, Robert, and it's both intriguing, interesting, and very impactful. Right? Is the work that you're doing, and the couple of things I suppose what I wanted to say is thank you ever so much for doing what you're doing. Looking at the whole ADI element of research in particular, because I don't think we, and I'll categorize myself in that, sometimes recognize and appreciate the importance of research roles and what that then leads on to, and how exciting research can be. If I got anything from my university experience, which second time round when I went to do my master's, it was to learn how to learn, i.e. the research, and that was the most powerful part of my MBA. I'd been doing business for a very long time prior to that. So I got limited real knowledge around how to do business, but the principles of research. And then the second thing is, and we need to pick this up slightly separately, is one of the first cars I had, and there's a story here, and just to please indulge me, one of the first cars I had was a convertible XR3i, right? And it was green, and it had topless down the side, and I'd put my daughter in it, and we'd cruise around. And what's the relevance to this? Well,
your first car is a lot more glamorous than my first car.
No, it wasn't quite my first car. It's quite a blatant lie. My first car was something totally different. First car that I went and treated myself
it's just appropriate to your lifestyle.
When I had a proper job. Anyway, this XR3i, and for anyone who knows me, appreciates the power of three, was something that I'd come up with, this methodology and everything else. And the XR3i is something I've been developing for 3 years. So it's extended reality, which is the XR part, and the 3 I's revolves around inclusion, innovation, and internationalization, right? And the reason why I reference it in this conversation is because inclusion, innovation, and internationalization, or new markets, are the 3 biggest growth enablers when it comes to sort of enterprise growth, right? And everything that you've spoken about is, whether it's strategy or competitive advantage or new advantage, it's innovation is what we're talking about, and the power of innovation is just incredible, and that's how we went from the pyramids. That's where we went to the pyramids, but then from the pyramids and lost some of that knowledge somewhere when we were innovating. So it's a delight to hear you sort of taking the lead on how do we get more inclusion into innovation. And interestingly, we've got an event that I'd love you to be involved in January, which is the Inclusive Innovation Framework, which is a framework around how you use both inclusion and innovation to make things more relevant and responsive to the needs of many rather than the few. Anyway, I got excited by your level of interest, as you can probably tell. I probably want to invite Jalf and Doc into the conversation a little bit, given the time.
Just before I
Jalf,
do that, though, before we do that, can I
Yeah.
pick up one thing from that, Ammar? The thing
Please.
for me about the diversity of voices, the richness that would bring to innovation and research, is that there will be assumptions and expectations and norms that are different for you. And if you only are dealing with one very small sliver of society, they will only see problems in one way. And, you know, there may be completely different perspectives to bring to that. If you bring people into that space who've got disability or other things, they will see different sets of priorities that you just wouldn't see without those. So it's so important to make sure that our research careers are inclusive, because we will benefit from that, not just because it's a kind of act of charity, but because we will all benefit from that.
Oh, and thank you for that. And yeah, it absolutely is the case. Having researched, having been an advocate and a practitioner of innovation for 30 years now, you know, I look at things, simple things like the seatbelt, right? It was created by a white male person, wasn't adjustable,
of a certain height,
you know, certain height, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, let's do that. It still isn't fit for purpose for females, and in particular pregnant females. You know, there's something there that we need to consider. And more recently, I was shocked by the fact of the diabetes test that's done more broadly for everyone, which pre-50, which was the same done for males as it was females, and they realized only recently that they should have adjusted for females and would have picked up diabetes slightly earlier for all of these females. So you're absolutely right. There's so many compelling facts and reasons for us to use innovation and actually flipping that slightly, Robert, around. When we talk about inclusion, people normally tick box EDI. It's about people's backs being put up. People feel aggrieved. People go on the defensive. Are you saying I'm racist? Do you think I don't include you? No, but you have these subtle biases based on your own experience and lenses, which are justified and within, you know, in certain environments. But how do you turn it on its head? Well, you say, let's be more innovative rather than just inclusive, right? Because innovation leads to inclusion, and it gets people excited, and you go, how do we fix it or make it better? You know, they're the two words that I love applying every single day in everything we do.
I'd like to add the aspect of being a child. Only a child innovates. Adults don't. Adults are scared of each other. They cancel each other and so on. So I have followed that all my life. I've got currently 3 drones in my room. 3 drones. One somebody showed me a drone. I said, can you teach me? He said, no. And as a child, I made a thermometer, a bulb, and a tube. I was lucky to go to a Catholic school, not because it was Catholic, which made me a good Hindu, but because they would let me play. So I used to make radios. At the age of 12, I made a transistor radio. So I've always not been scared of technology, but it has to serve a purpose. So I think I would put it to you that to learn to play and not be stuck in the past is the only way to innovate.
So I'm sorry that I will have to go at 11 because I've got another meeting, and this is such a
We're
fascinating
gonna
conversation.
get kicked off
Sorry,
as
I
well.
said something.
I could, but Doc, what that reminds me of is a really great quote from a guy called Tom Peters, who many of you would know from the world of management education. And he's got this great phrase where he said he was interviewing a child about something, and the child said, I don't know why they call them grown-ups. I think we should just call them given-ups.
That's a great point. Jalf, anything to add from a...
No, it's been great to have you, Robert, and I think you've enlightened us in so many ways. And that's the end of our show.
I think we are coming to the end of our show as well. So thank you ever so much, Robert. We'll have to get you back on. We've really enjoyed this and have to delve a bit further. But thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend when it comes around. Thanks for your time this morning.
Cheers, Robert. Thanks.
Bye.